And say aloha and welcome to the 10th Hawaii Women in Business Seminar Series. My name is Annette Lynch. I'm a program manager with Maui Economic Development Board, your host for this series. And it's my pleasure to share with you a little bit of housekeeping to get you ready for the hour ahead. We are looking at planning for your business succession. It seems a popular topic, and looking forward to a very interactive workshop ahead. But in the meantime, you've got the ability to rename yourself. If you want to pop your organization name as well as your name, that will help us to identify you. As usual, please remain muted unless you're called to speak. We will have time for question and answering at the end of the presentation, although Marianne has said if questions are pertinent, we may do some Q&A during the presentation. You can pop that in chat, or at the end when we're asking you, you can raise your hand either electronically or the old-fashioned way. Yes, this webcast is being recorded. We'll send out notification when that is available. And we're going to pop in the chat your workbook. If you haven't downloaded it yet, we strive to include that in your confirmation mail via a link, and also send out a couple of emails, but sometimes those emails do get lost. So in the chat, check out, there's a PDF, a workbook that's going to help you work through all the valuable information that Marianne Ellis is going to share with you. So with that, as you prepare with the workbook, I am going to pass the mic to our CEO and President of Maui Economic Development Board, Leslie Wilkins.
Thank you.
You are muted.
Thank you very much, Annette. Much appreciated. Also, thank you to Leilani Ventura, who's running the tech behind our webinar today. It is exciting that this is our 10th Women in Business Seminar Series. At MEDB, we know that there's so much untapped potential in the women-owned businesses in the state of Hawaii. In fact, 40% of our small businesses are owned by women, but yet they tend to have smaller revenues. They tend to not be the primary source of income for the principal or the owner. So we're in this series here to help you grow your business. And once it's there, we have a great speaker today to help you pass on your legacy and your hard work. So we have a diverse group of registrants who have joined us today, and we welcome all of you. We like to showcase the business status, so we can see it's very evenly divided, that we have more mature businesses today, but again, a good crop of startup businesses. We know that during the pandemic, it was the largest growth rate of new business filings, and a lot of those, more than 50%, by women. Also, your business structure, that is also well balanced for everything from sole proprietor to an S Corp. And so thank you all for joining us. So next slide. So these are the business types, the classifications that you identified when you registered. Again, that's very, very well balanced. And it's, not really, it looks like finance and insurance, arts and entertainment, and of surprise, but wonderful to hear, ag, forestry, fishing, and hunting has a large percentage of businesses joining us today. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. She comes to us by a mutual good friend and affiliation, and that is Webeck West. MEDB has been so honored to partner with the Women's Business Enterprise Council. They are our partner in the Small Business Administration Community Navigator Grant, and we have learned so much. And Marianne is one of their awardees of the great work that she's done. She is the CEO and co-founder of CEO Success Community, the source for women and diversity-owned businesses seeking corporate contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Their mission is to show CEOs the fastest path to increase revenue and growth, and they have literally coached thousands of diversity CEOs. Marianne is also an Amazon #1 best-selling co-author. Her book is entitled Women in Business, Leading the Way. She's a member of the Television Academy. She annually attends the Emmys. She's an LA Times Inspirational Woman of the Year. And as I mentioned, she is a multi-time winner of WBE's Advocate of the Year for Women in Business. So we are delighted to have her join us today. Thank you so much, Marianne.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie. It's aloha to everyone. I used to work with the Hawaii Department of Energy, so it's wonderful to be back working with people who live in Hawaii and also the business community. What I'd like to do now is, let's see, we've got a good sized group. So normally I'd love to have you all quickly introduce yourself, but I don't know if time is going to allow that. So what we will do is I will start to take you on our journey, and I'll show you where we're going to go today. Let me quickly pull up the slides here. Let's flick that way. And I also want to show you the workbook too. So the roadmap that we're going to take, and again, I want to thank the Maui Economic Development Board, WeBank West, and SBA for this opportunity today. We're going to take quite a few stops to think about your business. The first stop we're going to take is, why now? Why today, Thursday, June 15th, should we think about business succession planning? The second stop will be on power of attorney, then successor identification. Won't it be great to pay less taxes? So how do you do that? And then also, if you're going to sell your business, then you also want to look at tax efficiencies, trusted advisor, and your next chapter. So that's what we're going to do for the next the next hour. It will go by very, very quickly. I wanted to start with a question just to see how savvy this group is. So 70% of small business owners want to pass on their business to the next generation. Take a guess how many actually do. Do you think it's 80%? Oh, someone already thinks it's 80%, maybe 50, maybe half do. Well, how about 25%? So it's anonymous, there's no wrong answers. What do you think is the percentage that actually do it? Because that's why this session has been sponsored today. So I will give it a minute. We have I feel like we're doing polls now. We're almost at 70% polling participation. So I will let the team close it when they'd like to, but looks like it's close between 50. Some people think 25. So go ahead and close it when you like. I always say when you get close to 80, that's perfect. So the true answer is 15. So those of you that are in the 35% that said 15, you're absolutely right, which is really a shame if you think about it, because all this hard work and only 15% pass their business on, which means 85% don't, which is awful. So we're here to correct that right now. So let me go ahead and take us on the journey. I also want to make sure, I'm going to quickly pull up the workbook. I'm going to sell the workbook for 1 minute. What we're going to do together is, and so if you have the workbook in front of you and a pen, I want you to start thinking about, what's your estimated retirement date? I'm just looking for a month and a year. And why might you retire sooner? And what financial needs might you have from the company? And I know we're talking about confidential stuff, so those of you that feel comfortable enough to share whatever part of this you'd like to, please do so. And I'd love to have a participant after each stop. And then the second area is we're going to talk about, have you set up a power of attorney? Heaven forbid anything should happen, later this evening, later this week. Who would take over your company right now, this week? And have you told them? And have you created certain things that need to be in place? So you're going to see in my workbook, these are very tight. It's like, yes, no, you have, you haven't. And if not, when are you going to do it? And then thinking longer term, if you're looking at possibly passing your company down to family members in the next 3 to 5 years. I just did a session last week with the Asian Contractors of America, and someone is looking at passing their company on in December, and they've done nothing. So, I get all kinds of ranges of reaction in these workshops. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about something. I'm not a CPA. I'm not here to give tax advice, but things that I want you to talk to your accountant about. And should you want to sell your business, which is a different way, of succession planning. How do your books look? What kind of documentation might be needed? So again, I don't expect that you're going to pull this out in our hour session, but we're going to take a look and think hard. How does your company look? And if you were to buy your own company, how would you feel? And then trusted advisors. We're going to have you write down, most of us probably have an accountant and a lawyer, but how would you rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 and why? And then there's a bigger team. I'm not suggesting you hire them all, but there's a bigger team and we just want you to be aware of who they are and bring them in as needed. And then last but not least, I will fail as a business growth coach if I don't make sure that you think about your next chapter. You're more than just your company. And I want us to brainstorm that if we did happen to win the lottery tomorrow, or somebody suddenly gave us millions of dollars because it's a family member we didn't know about, what would you do with your time if you walked away from your company? So it's going to be a fast hour, but we will certainly have some fun. Before I get started, is there anyone that has any questions at the top? And feel free to either drop it in the chat if you have a question, or raise a hand, or whatever process you'd like. So any questions before we get going? Going once, going twice? Okay, then we will get started. Let me go ahead and pull up the slides, and now you've got a preview on the workbook. So off we go. First of all, you might be wondering, why should I listen to Marianne Ellis for an hour? Who is she anyway? Yes, she does go to the Emmys. And if you love television, I just went to Only Murders in the Building. They're trying to curry our votes now, get us to vote. So yes, I have met Steve Martin. I also went to Emily in Paris, Brooke Shields, anyway, that's a big part of my life. So when I talk about marketing and advertising, that's that part of my life. But for the last 5 years, and it feels now like, I think it's now 6, I have coached thousands of diversity, small and mid-sized business owners on succession planning, how to invest in pivotal senior hires, how to secure millions of dollars in funding, purchasing critical equipment, using capital to manage cash flow, and increasing company real estate holdings. So I'm endorsed by all of these different associations. I'm also a business coach with Southern California Edison and PG&E. And I also worked at a big global company called Omnicom, if you want to look it up on the stock exchange, and I was his COO and EVP. As you can see, I started in business when I was 5 years old. But for the last 6 years, I've had CEO Success Community. I only work for diverse business owners, women, LGBTQ, disabled veterans, minorities, and I love it. So that's my happy spot right now. So as we think about business succession planning, there's 3 things I just want to start you with, and then we'll go into the workbook. The first is, I want all of you to promise me that you will seriously consider creating a durable power of attorney in the month of June, if you don't have one right now. And I'll explain in a minute why. The last workshop I did, 80% did not. 80% of the business owners did not have a durable power of attorney. So if you're sitting there thinking, wow, am I alone? No, you're in the majority, and we need to fix that too. And the second thing is, I know it's really hard to think about. You work so hard on your business to think about a transaction action plan to let it go, but you need to work backwards from when you're going to be ready to let it go. And most important, do you have the right trusted advisors? So let's get started. All about you. And again, this is your hour. So if there's something that's not being asked or a question you have, please don't be shy. I'm really here for you. So step 1, why now? So retirement, many people are not willing to set an estimated date to transition ownership. And I don't allow anybody that I coach not to give me a date of when they think they could walk away. The real issue here about why you have to think about this now is it's more than just the future. Something, illness, I mean, we know what happened with COVID, illness, disability, even divorce, and the ownership of the company gets topsy-turvy. And the other D word, I don't even want to say that word out loud, but that also can happen, and it's happened. So with no plan, the reality is, and I don't mean to seem like Dora Doom here, but the company could be forced to sell, or you'd be shortchanged on your value. The business becomes rudderless, and you can risk failure. I hope that I've made the case for why it's really important that you think about this now. So the first question I would ask, and I would love to take a volunteer, if anybody, I always get volunteers. If there's anybody out there willing to say, are you thinking about retiring at the end of this year, next year, the year after? And then the other two questions might be a little bit more personal. So that's why the workbook is privately for you and to take back to your other business partners. But I would love to see if there's anyone that's willing to talk about what their timeline is in terms of your future. It's really nice because you heard Brandy's 12 years out, Maureen's 3 to 5, and David's 1 to 3. So this is very, very relevant. So let's continue on our journey and see where we go next. And it's important for all three of you, as well as everybody on the call, why might you retire sooner? So fill that out. And then once you walk away from the company and you're no longer getting a distribution or a salary or putting expenses through, what financial amount of money do you need to live the lifestyle you want? So these are something for those three to think about. They've got some timeline, and for all of you. All right, next stop. Bum, bum, bum. This is a speech I'm going to keep giving. Durable power of attorney, durable power of attorney. So what is a durable power of attorney? So you want to put your wishes in writing ahead of time. Many of us have wills and trusts and things like us for personal, but what about for your business? So this is an advance directive, and you need to identify someone. It could be in the company, it could be a relative, but who will manage and control the affairs of your business if you can't? And you need to set up a comprehensive plan. So do they know what your business plan goals are? How can you transfer assets? Do they know anything about taxes? Now, few, many of us have filed our taxes already, but don't do this to them. Do they know how to move the company forward? So again, we don't wish anything. We hope everyone on this call is going to be just fine, but lots of those D's that I showed earlier can happen. So let's take a look at our workbook. First of all, you either have done it or you haven't done it. So I'm going to allow the people that have done it to put in the chat, say, durable power attorney, done. So if you've done it, drop it in the chat and let us know that you've done it. If you haven't, you can just be quiet and we won't call you out. But it's important that you designate someone to manage your affairs. So it's a yes or no. And if it's no, that's okay. I told you 80 to 85% in my last group hadn't at all. When will you do it? And who, if you had to just put in a name right now in your workbook, who would it be? Now let's keep going. For those of you that have designated someone, or when you do, how much training have you given them? I mean, if you're not able to speak, have you given them any training ahead of time? And do they have access to all the key information, like your passwords? Does your management team know? Your clients, your trusted advisors? So you don't want to leave someone there that there hasn't been any ramp for them. And then I made a little checklist. Yes or no, durable power of attorney? Is there a comprehensive business plan that you showed them? Is there a tax consideration plan and an asset protection? It's a simple yes or no. When will you do it? And this is just a good status update for you. But we've got quite a different collection of businesses here. So this applies to everyone. So I don't want to feel anyone feeling like this doesn't apply. It really does. So let me scoot on to the next one. Now, this is an important question. Durable power of attorney is what happens if something happens tomorrow. This is more thinking about, where does the company go? Can the company live on long term? So who is your CEO successor? Today, who would you pick? Take a look at who that is. And then I think what you really need to say to yourself is, that the right long-term leader? Could they double or triple the business if you weren't leading? And if yes, great. Let's start developing a training plan immediately. If not, if you don't see them with the ability to double or triple your business, that's the yardstick here, then you need to identify new candidates and begin recruiting. Also, depending on the size of your company, so I don't know how large Brandy's construction company is, or different people on this, you might have a larger company and you need to look at your leadership team. So there might be a field team, an office team, a safety team. So you also need to look beyond that CEO role to your department succession. So again, not to try to overblow this, but there's the leader and then the department leaders, again, depending on the size of your company. So once again, there's that checklist again. So the question is, who would you pick today? And are they the right long-term leader? And here's some more questions to ask yourself. If you have picked a long-term leader or a CEO successor, please drop in the chat, done, I have a CEO successor. And then the questions I would ask you is, what would be, so you've picked them. If you look right here, what would be the reaction from your employees, clients, and suppliers? I worked with one business owner. They had picked who they thought was the perfect successor. When the clients found out, a couple of them wanted to leave the company. Not a good reaction. So you don't want to scare anybody, because I'm sure a lot of your clients really trust you, but you want to let them know that you're bringing up the next level of management. So you could say something like what Maureen did. I'm planning to be here for another 5 years, but I just want to let you know my second tier team, so that you don't scare anybody. And then the question is training, and what's the training plan, and has your team been informed, and your trusted advisors. So it's a little bit similar like the durable power, but this is having more of a long view. And if you haven't found your successor, don't let your company be vulnerable. Start to look for it. And then we also come down here to the critical departments. I think what Darren said is a good word to the wise for all of us. Yeah, the paperwork takes 30 days, but remember, the other part of doing a good job with CEO successors is taking them out to everyone, getting that comfort level, getting that confidence. So the fact that you said 30 days, but then the other part took years, that's why we want you to get started. That goes back to our very first stop. Why now? You got to get started now, or you're forever going to be running the company, which some of you might like, but then again, some of you might like a little relaxation in your life. So think hard about that. Is there anyone else that would like to share what it took to find a successor or how they found one? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll scoot on. We still have quite a few stops and we're halfway to our time. So this next area, if there does happen to be a CPA in the group, feel free. I just want to make sure, just like Leslie, your CEO, said earlier, that you're asking the right questions. So if you're going to pass it on to the next generation, there are steps that you can put into place with estate tax, gift tax, generation skipping tax, income tax. When I was with the group, another group we were working this through, we did have a CPA. So it's always, this could be a good follow-up topic, because what you want to do is find a way to not have that next generation be burdened. Leslie's saying, goodness gracious, if I've got to take over this, what's the asset protection plan? So again, I'm not telling you how to do this. I'm just saying there's all these nifty things that you need to evaluate and say, I want to use it. I don't want to use this. This makes sense. And how can you, not that we all don't like paying the government, because we do enjoy some of their services, but we'd like to keep more for ourselves. So again, the question goes out to the group. Is there anybody in the community that maybe has looked at any of these tax saving ideas? Again, you don't need to tell us any confidential information, but if you found one or two things that you think could help, is there anyone that would like to share? What I'm talking about more is financial tools that you can put into place. So what I'm talking about is there are certain ways to gift money, and you need to talk to your CPA. How much per year? To whom can you gift? How does that make sense? And then there are generation skipping, so down to kids and grandkids. So there is all kinds of ways to shelter your money as a business owner that you need to take a look at. And the reason I'm careful in a workshop is not to give any specific advice. Sometimes we get lucky, we get a CPA who's willing to go, or someone who has employed a couple of these. But I think more we will leave this as a checklist for you to look at. The next area that I want to go to is we talked about both tax efficiencies and so passing on and how to be efficient. The next thing I wanted to talk about is something that really has to do with the fact that a lot of business owners use, we call it tax efficiency. You put a lot of costs through the business. And the good news, bad news there is it creates a balance sheet that shows low profit. So you're working within the tax code and what's allowed, but on the books, it looks like you have a low profit. However, if you're selling your business, you want to have higher profit, which means higher taxes. And this is another thing that's important to understand. Historical financials are important if you're going to sell your business, and it takes time and planning. So let me show you what I mean by that. If you look in your workbook, if you're selling your business, typically a broker, and we know a lot of people in the community that are brokers, so in the diversity community, they're going to want to take a look, the broker's going to want to look at, or the buyer, your P&L for the last 2 to 3 years. They're going to want to look at your current balance sheet, your cash flow, your business return for the last 2 to 3 years. If you currently have a lease, your insurance policy, and any non-disclosure confidentiality. They want to see what you own and what you don't own. So the challenge here is, if you are putting a lot of cost through the business and bringing your profit down, it's going to affect how your P&L looks. So if you know you're going to sell, you want to increase your revenue to the highest level possible. You want to watch what's being passed through. And then, again, I'm not asking anybody to share any of this information right now in the workshop, but I would say in your workbook, take a look and say, if you were a buyer taking a hard look at your business, how profitable does your company look? And I would put positive, negative, and why. Does it look like your company's on a growth projection? So that goes back to the business plan that you've written, your 3 to 5 years business plan. Does it look like you are year over year growing? And they typically look for 20% EBITDA year over year growth, 2 to 3 years. And then what's the future opportunity of your company? So these are things to consider if you're selling your business. So let me take a pause here. Is there anyone that would like to comment at all? So now I think the point that James is making, and we all love dogs, so that's do something that you're passionate about. But I think that I really appreciate it. And I think it's also good for you to hear from community members that what we're talking about here is real. And that's again why, even though I know there's probably quite a few of you that are up in the air about what you're doing. I know Mary is not in the minority. I know a lot of people haven't really thought about it. I run into hundreds of business owners. I do workshops with 500 business owners. Over half of them haven't even thought about their exit, not at all. So, but you do need to think about it and then start to work backwards. So, again, James, he said someday. Darren is going to be my poster child to have the right advisors around you, because again, if Darren had said to the right CPA or the right lawyer, because I'm smiling because my business, and so I'm owned by VO Group, which is a 23-year-old company, and we were a C Corp, and we had the right advisors move us into an S Corp, and that was painful and expensive. So all of this stuff we're talking about, and that's why I think it's just so good for you to hear. And again, if anybody feels bold enough like Darren to raise a hand, when you've had to sit in this wet paint and something hasn't worked out, you want to share it with your friends so they don't have the same mistake. So again, knowing where you want to go with your company, whether it's 12 years from now or 5 years from now, then you got to talk to these advisors and figure out, is my company structured right? And, I can tell that Darren's never going to make that mistake again, which is why I, again, couldn't pay him enough money to be my segue here. So thank you. Trusted advisors, who's on the team. So most of us probably have an accountant, unless we're using H&R Block, and a lawyer. I find more people seem to have an accountant than a lawyer. I think to start, those are both good, because you don't want to get to know your lawyer when you're in trouble. So even if you don't need to put someone on retainer, even if it's going to be ad hoc, I'll call you when I need you. I encourage all of you to at least have met a complimentary introductory meeting with a lawyer or an accountant, even if you're using H&R Block and no lawyer. So that's just my gift to you as a business growth coach. Please do that. Now, as your company gets bigger, Darren, 12 years down the road, there's called the Big 10. And again, I'm not suggesting that you hire all these, but there's strategy advisors, there's lawyers, there's accountants, there's companies that do business valuation so that before you go to market, you know what it's worth, and they do charge for that. Your banker, this was so important. When we went through EIDL and PPP, those companies that I have coached that had their banker in their iPhone and had met with them, as I told them, fared better when it was time to get those SBA loans. So know your banker. Again, if you own real estate as part of your holdings of your company, so it's important to have realtor, commercial realtor, estate planner, insurance specialist, family advisor, investment bank, banker, or business broker. Now, at this point, you might go, Marianne, are you nuts? I can't afford all that. I'm not saying bring them in all at once, but just have this workbook available to you so that as time goes on, you can decide if in fact, you need them. At least you've heard them mentioned before. So given the fact that we all probably have an accountant or a lawyer, I would suggest that you go to your workbook, fill in their name, and then privately give them a score to 1 to 5. 5, they're great. 1, not so great. And maybe even remind yourself why you feel that way. And then begin to think about, do you have the right team? And then if you can go to the next level down, if you have any of the other ones, feel free. Without mentioning any names, if anybody wants to drop in the chat, I have what score would you give your lawyer and CPA, unless we would know who they are, don't do that. But we had a lot of fun last session. People said lawyer 5, CPA 2, lawyer 4, CPA 3, so if anybody has any scores they want to give either their lawyers or their accountants, feel free. So let's go to the last stop, and that way I can still leave time for Q&A. Your next chapter. I'm sure most of you can't even think about that. But when you're ready, I think, and it's still really good to fill out your workbook. What are you really passionate about? Is there a skill or talent that you would love to master? I tried piano, it was a disaster. Who would you like to spend time with? I think my husband, believe it or not, we will have our 40-year wedding anniversary next year. He would advocate for me to have more time for him. What have you always wanted to do? I've always wanted to skydive. And is there a cause or business that really needs you? And I'm looking into that right now. We just relocated back from Silicon Valley. I'm in Los Angeles right now. So what I would say in your workbook, and this is kind of fun and lighthearted, we know already somebody that's passionate about dogs. So that person I know might go in that direction, but this is kind of something fun for you to fill out. And then when you're ready to consider your next chapter, you have this workbook page to reflect on. I can tell you right now that I do a lot of coaching with family business. So I've got the mother and the son, or the father and the daughter. If I can't get that older generation, early generation out of the hair of the next one, the next generation is never going to succeed. So this next chapter is really important. And the thought here too is, you are more than just your company. And we want you to also have some joy from all the success that you've had. So let me pause. And again, you can put in the chat something you've always wanted to do, or a passion, or anything. Well, let me roll out here so that we can open it up for any other Q&A. I just want to leave you with, go ahead, Sherry, and mute. Oh, thank you, Sherry. And whoever else is sitting there with Sherry and friend. Okay. So business succession planning, I just wanted to leave you with 3 thoughts. First of all, it's never too late to start your plan. And I really encourage all of you to do it today. Secondly, your company needs you to find the next generation of management. So if you want me to hit you on the business side, don't let your company, all your hard work go away. plan for the future of your company. And then the last one is more for you, explore your next chapter because you're worth it. I mean, you have put your nose to the grindstone, you've gotten the company to where it is. So like Sherry, go travel, go do some fun things and pass on your company so it can continue beyond you because, you know, we're Maui Economic Development. We want to continue to have the jobs and the income being built and created within Maui. So the last poll that we have that we'd like you to think about is of all the stops that we made so far, and we made quite a few, which one of them, and again, this is anonymous, we don't know who responded, which stop will you go back and spend more time with, or which stop was most important to you? Is it why now? Is it the conversation around power of attorney? Is it the conversation around successor, ease taxes, tax efficiency, where we talked about, you know, moving it on to the next, selling it, or trusted advisors? So go ahead and let us know which area you might go spend some more time on. And it might also be an indication of where you're going with your company, but it also is good just for, you know, Annette, Leslie, Leilani to see what the community needs. So if you could let them know, that would be much appreciated. So thank you. We're getting close to 60. I see almost 60% there. Boy, it's really spread out pretty evenly. It looks like ease tax is getting #1, but everything else is almost a tie after that. Okay, well then maybe what we're learning is this is well balanced. We needed a little bit of each, and all of this is important. So thank you again. We can close that. Thank you very much. So yeah, the winner is definitely ease tax exposure. Yeah, nobody wants to pay taxes. So on that note, with 8 minutes left, so we can open it up for Q&A, I want to again thank the Maui Economic Development Board. It's really been a joy to work with Leslie and Annette and Leilani. WeBank West, which is where I'm registered, so for women business owners, and the SBA, thank you for spending an hour with us on Business Succession Planning Roadmap. I will turn it back to the Maui Economic Development Board.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for a very engaging, interactive workshop, and thank you to everyone here participating. It definitely helps when it's a conversation versus you're just speaking at. So I enjoyed listening to it all. If you've got some questions, pop up your hand, either electronically or physically, or pop it in the chat. I noticed a comment by Darren there, a recommendation on the passion picture, putting that with a date where you want to obtain it, or you'll work on your business forever with no end. So yeah, a date is definitely, is like versus that one day. We've all had that one day.
I think Darren and I can take this show on the road, Darren. But Annette is absolutely right. I put in the chat, if you want to connect in with me, please link in with me. I will let Annette know if I ever make my way to Maui, if you would ever want to gather in person. But definitely, please, I like to follow your success on LinkedIn, and that seems to be the easiest way. The emails just get too slammed. I'm also good on private message. So if there's anything you heard today that you need from me, LinkedIn private message is great. And again, please, this is your time. So we've got a few minutes left. How about ask Marianne anything? So you can ask me about business succession planning or anything as it relates to your business.
And while you're thinking of a question, because I want to make sure you see this, there is a link in the chat for our Survey Monkey to get your feedback, and we'll send it out to you by email as well with the recording. But please do give us your feedback, just for those who need to drop off. But you know, please ask a question. I know.
Oh, David,
you're so thorough, Marianne. It's like all questions are answered, but you know,
so David, well, the question was, where can I find a business valuation specialist? The first person that comes to mind is Anna Jacobs at Diamond Capital. I really trust her, and I don't know if I can put it in the chat, but if you link in with me in private message, let's see if I can pull her up really quickly. And this will be just good for everybody to see. And by the way, I just want to be very clear. I get no commission, no affiliate, no nothing if I make any referrals. It was a business ethics waiver I signed a long time ago with Southern California Edison. I believe Edison brings energy to Hawaii. So when I make a referral, you know, it's clean and there's nothing that I get for it. So if this would be of use to you, her name is Anna Jacob. She's a Diamond Capital Advisors. She did have her own small business. She also worked at Lehman and she's outstanding. So that would be my very first business valuation recommendation. I think she's brilliant, and she has valued a couple of my of people that I have coached their business also. So I hope that answered the question. And I'm just looking to see if there is any information about her email. She's the managing director there, and that's her phone number, and that's her. Did that answer your question? Okay. All right. Next up, Mary had a question. Oh, go ahead and unmute, Mary.
Yeah, I was trying. Had a pop-up annoy. Are you available for questions after privately?
So here's what I typically say for questions privately afterwards. Just, I would say, reach out to me on LinkedIn private message, and then I can talk to you. I typically don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but tell me what you need, Mary, and I'll see how I can help you. So yes, that's the best way to do it. Sherry?
Okay, I have been trying to find a good tax consultant, not just a CPA or an accountant. But I find that I feel like I pay way too much tax, and that there should be ways that I should be able to afford or get some coaching, I guess, to avoid that.
So I'm going to begin with the Maui area, because I just apologize. I just made a referral not within the Maui community. So I'm sorry. I quickly answered David's question and I apologize. I don't know enough about the Maui community. So I do want to encourage for both David and for Sherry, if you know anybody in Maui that you can refer for business valuation, please put that in the chat or let David know. And Sherry, go ahead and mute just so that is there anybody that knows a good tax advisor within the Maui, the state of, within the Maui community? Is there anyone that could make a referral and drop it in the chat or talk privately to Sherry? So, and then Leslie, do you have community members that are CPA?
Yes, we do. We definitely, and we have board members and members of our organization. So, Sherry, we're a nonprofit, so we usually don't recommend, but we can give you names for you to vet. And I know that the accounting associations do a really good job of making sure their members are ethical and, how they're valued in community. So I think that's always good to go to the taxes and associations to see their rankings of community members. So I know we're closing in on 1 o'clock. I just wanted to offer on behalf of all of us our gratitude, Marianne, for joining us. I think when we saw the distribution, the last poll of everyone, we all needed part of it. I think that just means we need to invite you back again. But what I wanted to tell everyone, Annette mentioned this, is that she is so generous with her mana'o, her knowledge, that this was done gratis. She gave you the workbook and all this information, and she's allowed us to record this. So it will be posted on MEDB's website if you want to go back and, check your notes and see what you might have missed. And then I'm really excited. I don't know if you can share a little bit more about this, but as I said, we met each other through our great partnership with Webeck West, which does promote opportunities for women business owners, minority business owners. And they're looking to take maybe portions of this and more of your body of work to have, more opportunities for people to get, whether it's a podcast or more webinars or just a website posting. So thanks. Do you have any more information on that, or you want to share?
What I would say is one of the best things to do is make sure you're linked in with me. I am so lucky. I am sponsored by Capital One. I am sponsored by Edison. I'm sponsored by so many corporations. This is I definitely would call this like, I've tried to retire my 4th time. And so I'm in a different space in my life where this is very mission based for me right now. I mean, off the record, I killed it in advertising. And that's why I get to go to the Emmys. So I'll be looking for new dress. Anybody has any suggestions? And last year by accident, I got stuck on the nominee side. So that's how I ran into Steve and, John Legend and all these cool people. But anyway, so I really am, and there's a lot of national, I just got a lot of national recognition. And so if you stay connected to me, I have lots of free seminars on sales and pivoting and leading through change. So I'm glad to help any of you as much as I can.
Thank you again for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us. And when we already have a dynamic speaker lined up, thanks to Webeck West's recommendation for our number 11 Women in
Oh,
Business.
she's great. Pam is
series.
wonderful. I know Pam.
Great. So we hope to catch you then. Thank you again.
Bye, everyone. Stay in touch. Please link in with me. I put it in the chat. I hope that we connect. And when you linked in, just say Maui Economic Development or do the abbreviation. What is it? MEDB.
MEDB.
There you go. So that I know who you are. And I'm wishing you all lots of luck. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today. It was great. Thank you. Thank you again,
Thank
Leslie,
you.
Annette, and Leilani.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.